All right. Hello, everybody.
Ooh, we're live.
We are live.
Hey, Insta people.
Okay, let's invite Kourtney.
Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday, everybody.
Hi, Ryan. Hey, Kourtney.
Hello.
There she is.
So excited.
Are you
What's going
excited?
on?
All right, we'll give everyone a minute to join.
It's good. How are
How's your
you
morning
guys?
going?
Good. So far,
Yeah,
so good. Wednesday's our early day, so we've been up since 5:30.
I've been up
Okay.
since
Yeah,
4:30.
it's always an early morning here. My husband does the 4 a.m., gets to work by 7, and I get to be a part of that.
But we're so excited to have you with us this week.
Welcome to the Relocation Rundown.
Yeah, welcome.
Very excited to have you. For everyone that doesn't know, my name is Aaron.
I'm
This is
Jeff.
We are the Aaron and Jeff team at Compass. We focus on the Bronx and Upper Manhattan real estate. And our guest today is the lovely Kourtney Murray, who is an agent at Properties in Chicago.
Thank you guys for
So
having me. Oh my God, my mom is here. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Well, we wanted to kind of, starting with Mom, I guess, tell us a little bit about your background. You know, you were a born and raised Chicagoan. So how did you
Chicagoan.
Sure. So how did you get into real estate? Tell
So
us a
I
little about that
graduated
journey.
from college a year early, and my folks were really kind. They're like, you can take the year off, but the one thing we ask is for you to get your real estate license. And I was a big 22-year-old at the time. I was like, real estate, but whatever. I don't need to get a job, because back in 2012, you really couldn't. There was really nothing out there. So I went ahead and I got my license and could only sit still for so long. I eventually ended up working at a boutique brokerage down in Chicago. Quickly moved down to Chicago after that. I was an admin for a while, really learned the business from the bottom up, and that was such an eye-opening experience, because we were doing foreclosures. We were doing not the sexy stuff that you see on TV. So really learning from the bottom up. And that was 10 years ago.
Wow.
That's crazy. So you've been in the business 10 years. How has Chicago real estate changed for you and your business in that time?
Or market wide?
Yeah,
What have you
market-wide.
seen as the big,
So
difference over
definitely
the
two
last decade?
parts to that. So before, when I was growing up, obviously there's always been people in Chicago. It's such a wonderful city. But when I was growing up, 90s, early 2000s, a lot of the big corporations like your Walgreens, McDonald's, things like that, they were out in the burbs. So a lot of people were still living in the burbs. You didn't really see that shift back into Chicago until recently, maybe like the last 10, 15 years. It's really seen more of a pull downtown. So that's been really interesting to watch. But then, with the pandemic, obviously, there was definitely a shift back to the burbs for some folks. But the relocation, I've been doing relocation since 2015. And that continues to drive in a way that, despite headlines, we're always moving people to Chicago. So that's been really interesting.
Where are people really moving from? Is it all over the place, or is there certain feeder markets that are really big for you
It's
in
a
terms
mix.
of
So we'll
relocation?
do international. So that's always really interesting. Last year alone, someone from Britain, sometimes we have folks from the Middle East. India's big too. Maybe that's just because, of my influence, so I'm seeing that more.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's
Could
been
be.
interesting from a nationwide perspective. I know a lot of the big companies like the Deloittes of the world, they're backlogged on their relocation, so they're starting to move folks now that, everything from the last few years has settled down. New York, I think a lot of folks are wanting to go back to their Midwest roots if they're originally from here. I actually did a showing with someone who looked like they just stepped off of like a Rick Owens runway. He was fabulous. But he was over New York. You know, he's wanting to move back home. And then I see a lot of the, you know, Chicago's the biggest city in the Midwest. So maybe like your Missouris, your Indianas, your Iowas of the world, they're starting to try to, I guess, move up into a bigger city. So we see a lot of that as well. I see that more than anything.
So when it comes to relocation, what do you think is the big driver for individuals moving to Chicago? What are they getting out of the city that they're not getting either in the suburbs or in the other parts of the Midwest that you're referring to?
Be a lot of job driven. We were actually out to dinner just the other night, and this guy, he was staying at the hotel, and they're like, oh, you know, you come in often? And he's like, now I do. He's like, during the pandemic, I moved. Now my job wants us in office again. So he's having to come down here once a month. So some of it's not by choice. A lot of it is, though, summer in Chicago is just so wonderful. And then it is such a broad city. You have the neighborhoods. You can have like your little dive bar experience where there's still the courtyards and you have that green space. But then if you really want that concrete jungle driven lifestyle, you know, the L juxtaposed with the high rises and all of that, you can get that too. So being so diverse with, I mean, amazing food, the people are nice, you know, a lot of family ties are here, seeing folks, you know, wanting to start their families or maybe just settle down their roots. Some people, it's, you know, I want to find a partner. So it's a lot of these like diverse reasons. And Chicago has all of that for them.
I love that. And I think that we see some of that here in New York as well, right? Where people kind of left the city during the pandemic and are finding themselves now being asked to come back to the office once, twice, 3 times a week, and suddenly thinking, like, do I really want to do this commute? I kind of miss my New York City life. And we're also in a market that in the Bronx is very much that urban suburban blend. So it's kind of like maybe a little bit more of a concentrated Bronx over there in Chicago.
And I know you guys are so familiar, so like, you guys get it.
Yeah, definitely.
Where are you seeing some really good deals in Chicago real estate? What neighborhoods are really catching your eye?
Pretty hot right now. It's interesting, you know, despite the national headlines, Chicago's real estate market is still really healthy. It's very competitive from the suburbs to the city. It's multiple offers, and it's not just like 1 or 2 multiple offers. It's like 10 to 15 multiple offers. So to find a deal, it's kind of on a case-by-case basis, and it's really relative speaking. You know, I have clients that they want this new construction home, and, you know, we're actually able to negotiate a little bit, and it is downtown, and so that's, knock on wood, that's going to be a great deal. I would say, though, the neighborhoods that are not just right on the L, which are maybe like more like commuter neighborhoods, I'm seeing a lot more opportunity in, because, you know, people are being able to work from home. So they are willing to be just a tad bit further from, you know, downtown or the L stops and things like that. So if you're willing to get more space, you know, maybe pay a little bit less, not be in as competitive of a situation, you know, your Irving Parks of the world and those like little outskirt neighborhoods that are still centrally located, those have some good opportunities right now.
What are you seeing, or how do you work with people and explain the biggest differences in navigating the Chicago market versus other markets where they may be more familiar? You know, here in New York, 70% of our housing stock is cooperative, which has its own very kind of unique process. What's different about your market that you want prospective
Depends on where
relocators
you're
know.
coming from. So if you're coming from a New York, you aren't seeing the co-ops here like you do there. It's mostly condos, some townhomes, and then single family homes. So that's the biggest difference there. If you're coming from a smaller city and moving into Chicago, it's learning, you do have HOAs with the condos. Those are homeowners assessments. So you're paying an additional monthly fee. We're wanting to know how healthy that condo building is, what they've been doing, their minutes. It's just a lot for folks that aren't used to that. So really, education is one of the most important things for us, and sitting down, talking through those numbers, making sure our clients understand exactly what they're getting into and getting into a healthy property. That's the biggest hurdle to overcome. And then, if you're not used to it, pricing. But if you're from New York, we look great.
You do look great. I want to jump to talk about rentals because I know you have a big rental portfolio and you're a big rental agent. So what kind of advice do you have for people who are moving to Chicago, looking to rent? How fast, like how far out do you have to start looking for a rental? And what advice do you have for people looking for rentals?
And far out, he means time-wise,
Yes,
not
yes.
out of downtown.
Yes.
So if you're looking for a rental, if you're thinking about relocating to Chicago, just contact us as soon as possible. We do a lot of education, even from a leasing perspective, just because there are a lot of nuances in Chicago that there might not be in other cities. If you really want to, boil it down 90 days out, I would love to talk to you by then, because we really, 60 days out is when we're seeing renewals confirm or not confirm. The biggest thing, though, is you have to be patient. You have to be flexible. Rentals right now are a very hot commodity. There's multiple offers on apartments similar to how it is in New York. And so sometimes you are having to offer your highest and best, which is, and it's hard for some folks to navigate or digest. We help them navigate it, but to digest that, since it's not a sale, that's been a really hard thing for people to take in. But each neighborhood has its own personality. So come to Chicago, take a day or two, at least a weekend, explore the different neighborhoods, walk around, do brunch, do the whole thing, find where your vibe is. And that's, it's temporary. It's 12 months. Like, it'll be okay. And honestly, I would say rent first, find what neighborhood speaks to you, and then purchase.
Yeah. I need to know what your favorite neighborhood in Chicago is. If you
It
needed to name
depends on
one.
my mood.
You can name 3.
Yeah. What are your top 3?
Top 3 and why?
Totally biased, but I'm a Lakeview girl. I'm a neighborhood girl. I love the Cubs. My way of decompressing after a really long day is honestly posting up at the neighborhood restaurant, watching the Cubs game, not talking at all to anyone for a few hours, but being in the heart around Wrigley Field is just, it's such a beautiful experience because it is a neighborhood. Families live here. People live here. So, from the people walking their dogs to the kid riding their bike to the craziness of when it is game day, that energy is just insane. But now there's a bougie girl inside. And she loves the West Loop. I love the lofts. I love the dining. I love the almost New York feel transplanted into Chicago. And then not really a neighborhood, but the lakefront. I love being on the lakefront. I love running along there. It's just such an amazing experience to be out on the lake.
That's awesome. Okay, so you said Lakeview, the West
Yes.
Loop, and then the lakefront are your top 3. Okay.
I like that.
Yeah.
So I guess one of our last questions for you here is going to be, if there's one big takeaway that people watching could take from this about Chicago, what's the one big takeaway they should get about Chicago?
The biggest thing is headlines are headlines for a reason. Don't buy into all of that. You know, it's a big city. Your head should be on a swivel. That's how it should be, you know. But don't buy into all of what you hear. Chicago's awesome. We've been here for at least 10 years now, and it's been the best experience of my life. I can't imagine going back to the burbs. I love the people here. I love the diversity. I love the food. I love the culture, the architecture. There's just so much here. And I'm telling you, the summers make everything worth it. And I love
the summer.
I was just about to say, I love snow. So like, it's actually kind of snowing today, but I'm all about it. If you embrace it for what it is, it's the best city. You know, obviously it's no New York, but it's a wonderful place to live, and to really, it gives you that space to grow who you are, because there is just so much here to offer. You know, the museums, the culture. I could go on forever.
Please do. I want to ask you about, so we talked about Chicago, the city, now Chicagoland. And like in New York, we have the Hamptons as like a vacation spot, the Catskills, the Adirondacks, the Poconos. We have like all these sorts of like places we can go for like a quick getaway. What kind of spots are around the Chicago area that people tend to go to like that, like the Hamptons?
It's funny you say that. So it can go one of both ways. You know, Lake Geneva's not too far. That's up in Wisconsin. So a lot of people have their lake homes in Wisconsin and Michigan. That's the easy question. What I'm really seeing, though, is a lot of these empty nesters, they're actually moving back to Chicago. That's their like vacation. That's their like second place. So with a lot of the, we do luxury leasing too, and then we do your standard traditional leasing. But I'm seeing those folks get a second spot in the city, test out the water, see how they're feeling, and then they're starting to make that move. So really Chicago's becoming their vacation spot.
It's funny you say that, because we've seen some people who are selling their homes out in the suburbs and moving into Midtown Manhattan for a similar reason. When you're in the middle of it with the subway and Ubers, you don't have to drive. Everything's at your fingertips. Everything's deliverable, and you don't have to maintain the home when you're in a building. So we're seeing that.
Keep saying that so my mom can hear that.
Everything in New York City can get delivered straight to your door, especially if you're in a doorman building. You don't have to do anything. It's nice.
I actually grew up in Mundelein, which is about like 30-40 miles away from the city.
Okay, so you were like 45 to an hour outside of the city?
Day.
Ish. Yeah, that's basically what my upbringing was too. I grew up an hour north of the city, and grew up an hour north of Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway,
I think this has been great, and we're so happy that you were able to take the time to kind of spend with us and talk about Chicago. Can you kind of give everybody who may be watching one more quick roundup of who you are and what you do?
And what projects you have maybe coming up in the pipeline, or what you have on the market right now. I know you have a lot of fun rental listings, so please tell her.
Here's your moment.
So I've been a real estate broker for over 10, or no, it will be 10 years this year. I know, it's wild, started from doing $1,000 rentals to now we manage and lease the marketing of multi-million-dollar projects. it's been really amazing. Our biggest thing is we actually create these thoughtful experiences that move people. So we do a lot of events. We like to get to know our clients. We like to immerse them into the city, especially because we do a lot of relocation. It's a great way for them to network as well. Project-wise, I just leased up a 75 unit building in the West Loop, which was, I mean, it was wild. It was a wild project. We took 175 bedrooms inside of 75 apartments and turned them into 75 traditional apartments. So did a full renovation project there and have almost fully leased the building. We're on our first renewal cycle, so that's been super exciting. And then just started working on Ani, so Old Town Park and the Hudson, their penthouse collection. So anywhere from about $10,000 up to $45,000 a month apartments. Yeah, it's been. So in Old Town and River North, so closer to downtown. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So it's,
Cool.
you know,
So exciting.
if you look at my resume, used to do like $900 apartments, and you have to start somewhere,
right?
And it's a lot of hard work. You guys know it takes a while to hit that pavement, but as long as you stick through it, you can get anywhere. And we're bringing our clients with us too, so that's been really exciting.
And
the
good
most
thing you have such a great
wonderful human
assistant.
being in the entire world that I can't thank you enough for.
Well, this is good, right?
Yeah.
Thank you
so much, Kourtney. This has been amazing. Next week we're going to Denver, talking to our friend Zach Nelson from Compass. So that will be so fun. So catch us here on Friday at noon.
And make sure you give Kourtney Murray a follow. And if you're thinking about Chicagoland for your next move, or somebody that you may know,
she's the only one to work with.
Same for the Bronx for you guys. Bye, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Kourtney.
Bye.